is Nasreen and I'm an independent artist from County Clay. I will be teaching a clay class to the children of the Direct Provision Centre. I will be doing 2 classes over 2 days, teaching the kids how to play with clay and paint it. So this is the clay that the kids will be using, and it's the dust paper dry clay, and each child will get a bag of clay and they'll get a couple of cookie cutters to cut out their names. So you just use the clay by conditioning it with your hand, and it's really soft to use. This class is for the ages 3 to 6. So I thought this was an easy enough craft where they could cut out letters, and later on day 2 they're going to be able to paint them. Now I already had the class with the kids and it was a lot of fun. It was kind of hard for them in the beginning, but once they got the idea which side was the side to cut, it seemed to go easy enough, and the kids just wanted to cut out all different shapes. They didn't want to stick to their names. They really did have a lot of fun in this class, and this clay is really nice. I enjoy working with this clay, and you can cut out any alphabets you want. We actually spelled out the name of the center we're in, and yeah, the kids got to use this and they really enjoyed the clay. So I'm just going to show you how to cut out the letters here, and I use these cookie cutters that are the alphabets, and I just spelled the word mom just to show you how easy it was. Now the older kids did different crafts, but this was for the younger class. So ideally I tried to get them to work with the clay, and I don't think a lot of kids had ever worked with this kind of clay before. They were used to Play-Doh, but never a proper clay like this one. And yeah, I tried to get them to cut out different shapes, and ideally I wanted to get them to cut out a circle, which I'll show you later on, and I was going to get them to stamp their hands in it. But it seemed the paint got everywhere, so not a lot of it got on the clay, but we seemed to make it work. Here I am just showing you how to use a cookie cutter, and you could use either side, and it's really gentle for little hands. So yeah, you just cut out a disc shape like that, and the kids, we were going to put their handprints on. Now for the older kids, we tried a different craft. So we're going to make a few things. I showed them how to do it, but the kids kind of had carte blanche and could do pretty much whatever they wanted with the clay. But a lot of them did this craft as well. So what I'm going to do is just roll this out really thin, and I'm going to use a stamp. Now these are the kind of stamps that you use with ink, and this one that I have here is a really nice one, and it was actually in the shape of kids, like they were little girls and boys, and the kids got to stamp and make impressions into the clay, which the next day they got to paint. So here I'm just showing you the stamp that I use, and yeah, the kids just got to push it into the clay, and when they pulled it out they had an impression. The older kids were much easier to work with. They were ages 7 and upwards, and they a lot of them got creative and tried to do other things and really had their own ideas of what they wanted to make. So I just kind of steered them along one way, and they kind of all went the other way, but they're extremely creative, and I just let them have fun with it. Now the second craft I'm going to do is to show you that you can actually paint with the clay, and you can paint with the paint directly onto the clay. So I'm using a stencil here, and you can paint using a foam brush or a normal brush. So I'm just going to roll this out really thin. And I'm trying to get it into kind of a square shape, which is the shape of my stencil, and you could use any stencil for this. So here I'm just rolling it out using a rolling pin, and I'm checking if the size is correct. It is not, so keep on rolling. So now that I've gotten it pretty much to the size of the stencil, what I do is just lay the stencil flat on, use the rolling pin, and just give it a gentle push, which will help the impression come up. And now that the clay is kind of sticking through those little holes, I'll just use some acrylic paint, and I just used a little bit of red to show you for the demonstration. And you can use the paint directly onto the wet clay, and as it dries, the paint will dry on top of it. So you can be as messy as you want with this part. It doesn't matter if a little bit of the paint goes over the edge, as you see I will do that later on, because if you just mix the clay up, the paint will just dissolve right back into the clay, and it won't really color it too much. So I'm using red just to show the brightness of it here, and you just paint with a sponge all over. And this is a really fun look, and we're actually making a little bowl of it, so I'll show you how to dry it in a shape that it dries into a bowl. So I'm just making sure I don't miss any spots, and as you can see I did go over the edge a bit. But once you pull off the stencil, then you'll see the magic. Now using a tool, I just peeled off the edge, and as you can see the impression is left behind and it is raised a bit. So now I'm just going to cut down the edges to make it into a square bowl. And on day 2 you can, when the bowl is dry, you just use gold or silver acrylic and you can go around the edges. This clay can also be sanded once it's dry. It actually dries very hard, it doesn't break very easily, so it dries very hard and it's easy enough for the kids to use as well. It doesn't crack very easily. And if it does go dry on you while you're working with it, you just use a little bit of water to reactivate it. And here you can see I just removed the edges, and I have a salad bowl next to me, and I'm just going to lay the piece of clay into the salad bowl, and it's going to take the shape of the bowl, and when it dries, it'll dry round in the shape of the bowl. So make sure to store any clay that you have left over into Ziploc bags. All the kids got tons of Ziploc bags, so they could take the rest of the clay home with them and use it later. Nothing goes to waste. Now you can see I've just taken the clay off the parchment paper very carefully, although I do smudge a bit, but it's fine, you can always fix those up later. And then you just place your clay slab right into the middle of the bowl, and you'll see it'll take the shape of the bowl. Now there is a little bit of a fold there, but you can just maneuver it around and get it to lay flat for you. And like I said, you can sand it once it's dry. And I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but that's the charm of handmade items. So now I'll just show you what the kids got up to on their day playing with the clay. So here are all our finished items on display for all to see and to brighten up the place. So from all the residents of the King Thomond, young and old, we'd like to thank Creative Claire and the Cruinniú 2021 event. Thank you so much for making this wonderful event available to us.